Hello there and welcome again. I'm Udayan Mukherjee, Principal Arya Vidyapith, and I welcome all the students of class 10 to yet another session. Alright, so you remember what we were doing the last time? Yes, it was this chapter from the book First Flight from the diary of Anne Frank. Now this is a diary. If you remember, I told you this is a diary and I gave you a very detailed background. Okay, so this is actually based on the life of this little girl, possibly younger than you people, right? A barely 13 or 14-year girl, and this girl is called Anne Frank, and she was a German of Jewish origin. This is to be remembered. She was a German, but she was of a Jewish descent or Jewish origin. And when the Nazis took over Germany, in other words, when Adolf Hitler came to power, his agenda was to eliminate, to systematically eliminate all Jews. Okay? So, if you remember, we did this set against the backdrop of the Holocaust when the Nazis massacred 6 million European Jews between 1941 and 45. This is a self-written account. This self-written account is what we call a diary. Okay? So, it is a diary of a girl who matures from a child into a person as she writes about herself and her aspirations, even while spending her time in hiding. Alright? So I told you, if you remember, that she went into hiding for 2 long years when she was completely cut off from the outside world. She was hiding from the Nazis until finally she was caught along with her family and sent to a concentration camp, a prisoner camp, which Adolf Hitler called concentration camps, where people were tortured and killed, and there she passed away almost a year later, or less than a year later. Alright? So, she spent her time in hiding writing this diary called the Diary of a Young Girl, from which this particular excerpt is a particular portion, a small portion, taken from a longer piece. Okay? So this excerpt has been taken from the Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank. Alright? So, even while spending her time in hiding, this is important, because she wrote this diary while she was hiding from Adolf Hitler's army. Alright? The secret police. Okay. Fierceness of honesty. I told you the main quality of the diary. It is very, very honest. It's brutally honest. And it is dipped in humor. This is very, very important. It is humor that comes through. And you will see many instances of humor in this extract. You will see many instances, many examples. And this stands out as the strength of her writing. That is how her diary is different from other diaries. You see, diaries are usually very personal. Because you write a diary, I write a diary, I will write my personal matters, which may not be of interest to you. Alright? But Anne Frank writes about things which are personal yet very relatable. They are relatable. You can relate to them. You can identify with them. Alright? So that is what makes her diary very interesting and different from the others. Alright? So that was what we had done during the last session, and now we are ready to go ahead. All right, so we will go over now to part 2. Now, the first question, obviously, I told you, that would come to anybody's mind is, who was Anne Frank? So Anne Frank was a German diarist of Jewish origin. When the Nazis took over Germany, I've explained all this, so I will not dwell on this again and again, because I've already given you a detailed backgrounder. Oh, all right? So when the Nazis took over Germany, she moved, that is Anne Frank, moved to Amsterdam. Amsterdam, I told you the previous day that Amsterdam is the capital city of Netherlands. Netherlands is in Europe. So she shifted to Netherlands with her parents. She died at the age of 15, all right? But not before she had completed writing a world-class diary. Okay, so that in brief is who Anne Frank was. All right? Okay, 2 other little bits of information. Anne's father, this is Anne's father, his name was Otto Frank, and this is Frank's mother. Her name was Edith Frank. So Otto Frank was the only member of the family to survive at the concentration camp. Nobody else survived. First, Anne's mother passed away, followed by her sister, her elder sister, Margaret, and finally she too died. Okay, so Otto Frank found the diary, as I told you the previous day again. Otto Frank found the diary to be immensely interesting, and therefore he got it published after her death, and it was called The Diary of a Young Girl. Right? I told you that, The Diary of a Young Girl, and it is from this that this particular extract from the diary of Anne Frank, your chapter, has been taken. Okay? So this is an extract. All right. The second information is Anne's friend was her diary. Remember, the diary that she had written was her friend. Now this is very, very important. If somebody is your very close friend, somebody is your best friend, what do? Think. What is the single most important thing that you do when you have a very close friend? Yes, you're right. You confide in him. You tell him all your secrets, right? So you open up to your closest friend. So that is exactly what Anne does to the diary, because the diary is her real friend, her most trustworthy friend. So Anne's friend was a diary. So she takes the diary to be her friend, whom she fondly called Kitty. See, Kitty is a human name. So it is almost a personification of the diary. All right? So any diary is a personification, because in diaries, if you have learnt how to write a diary, you start with Dear Diary, right? Or somebody might write Dearest Diary. Okay, that's the usual norm, that's the usual format. However, she gave the diary a name called Kitty, because she wanted the diary to be very, very close to her heart. And therefore, she gave it a name, and the name was Kitty. And the diary was insightful. Insightful is something that shows deep understanding. Insightful. Insightful means deep understanding. Deep understanding. So that's what I told you. Remember, I told you that people would take her diary to be, simply some gibberish written by a teenager. All right? But no, that's not it. It was no gibberish. It was not some diary written by anybody, a young girl, which makes no sense. No, the diary was in fact something that gave people an idea of her deep understanding. Deep understanding of what? Deep understanding of situations, deep understanding of human values, deep understanding of human beings, and deep understanding of life. Something that you rarely find in a 13 or 14-year kid, or 13 or 14-year boy or girl. Correct? So that is what makes a diary different yet again. All right? So the diary was insightful, and the diary is, till date, it remains a real gem. It remains a true gem. Gem is something very precious. It's a stone. Gem is a stone, and something very precious. So it remains a precious piece of literature even today. And it will remain so for years and ages perhaps to come. All right? So that's it. Now, moving ahead. So we go over to the next page. Now, the main characters. A quick look at the main characters you will see in this particular extract. You've already met Anne Frank, who is a teenaged Jewish girl who wrote a diary while hiding in Amsterdam during World War II. Right? Okay. Now, Margaret Frank. I told you Margaret was Anne's elder sister. Now, Margaret was 3 years elder to her. All right? 3 years her senior, older than her. Margaret was born in the year 1926, while Anne was born in the year 1929. So, she was 3 years younger than her sister Margaret. All right, Otto Frank, as I just told you a while ago, that he was Anne's father who got her diary published after her death in a Nazi concentration camp. So she died at a Nazi concentration camp, and after that, Otto Frank got Anne's diary published. All right, Edith Frank, again, this is Edith Frank, Anne's and Margaret's mother. Right? So Anne's mother. Now, two very important characters. One, of course, is Mrs. Cuperus. Mrs. Cuperus, who was Anne's teacher in the 6th grade, and she was very close to her, Mrs. Cuperus. And the most important character after Anne was this person called Mr. Keesing, who was her maths teacher. All right? So, Mr. Keesing, Anne's teacher, he was Anne's mathematics teacher, who punished her as he got annoyed by her talkative nature. So Anne was very talkative in the class, just like some of you are, right, in the class. Some of you are very talkative, बहुत बातूनी होते हैं, बहुत बातें करते हैं. उसी तरह Anne भी बहुत बातूनी थी, बहुत बातें करती थी. So Mr. Keesing often got annoyed, often got irritated by this talkative nature of Anne and punished her. What was the punishment? Well, we will see that later in the account. Okay? All right. Now, moving ahead to the next page. we come to the beginning of the extract. Now here, Anne begins by saying that writing a diary is a strange experience. Right? Why was it a strange experience for Anne? She explains that to you. Anne begins in a very practical manner, saying that she was well aware. What is aware? What does the word aware mean? You know the word aware? The word aware means to know something. Right? किसी चीज को जानना. So that is aware. तो वो अच्छी तरह जानती थी that no one would take her diary seriously coming from a 13-year-old. Nobody would take her seriously. It's something written by a 13-year-old. एक बच्ची लिखी है. क्या लिखी होगी? बेकार की चीजें लिखी होगी. Right? So nobody would take her seriously. That she knew very well. All right. Next, she says, that is Anne says, she wouldn't care less as she had to write to give vent to her feelings. What is vent? Vent का मतलब है opening. Opening. Okay? So vent, the word vent means opening. So she says that I don't care what people think. You see, this gives you an idea that Anne never thought, she never believed that her diary would actually be published. She never thought of that. Okay? So she says that I wouldn't care less. I wouldn't care less if people don't take my diary seriously, because I needed to write. I needed to write in order to give vent to my feelings. Okay, so she wanted an opening. Now, what would offer that opening to her? Yes, the diary. So the diary, writing the diary, was actually a way of giving an opening, giving a vent, giving a window to her feelings to get out. Okay? All right. Then, this particular thing, paper has more patience than people. This is actually a proverb. एक कहावत है कि पेपर जो होता है, कागज के पास ज्यादा धैर्य होता है इंसानों के बनिस्बत. इंसानों की तुलना में पेपर के पास ज्यादा धैर्य होता है. Okay? So this is a proverb that papers have more patience than people. And this is what Anne believed. She knew that if she wanted to give vent to her feelings to people, people might not be interested. Okay? So she chose something, she chose a medium which was much more patient than humans. Okay? So that is the reason Anne took to paper. Taking to paper. Took to. Taking to something means she adopted that scheme. Alright? She adopted that way. इसी तरीके को वो अपनाई. So she took to paper to pen her thoughts. To pen means to write. To pen something. आप लिखते किससे हैं? पेन से हैं. So to pen something is to write something. Okay? So she used this way of writing a diary in order to give a vent to her feelings. All right? She had no plans to let anyone read her diary. As I told you, she never imagined that her diary would one day after her death become almost a bestseller. She never thought of that. Okay? So she never imagined that. So she had no plans of letting anyone read her diary. She would continue writing until she found a real friend. Very important. So she decided to continue giving vent to her feelings until she found a real friend, which means that she had no real friend. She might have had many people around her. She might have had her family, all right, her relatives, but she did not have a true friend to disclose her feelings, to give vent to her feelings. So she chose the diary in order to give vent to her feelings. All right? So very interesting. This is a very interesting fact which you must remember, that she was somewhere in her mind, she thought that she did not have a real friend. And therefore, she was desperate to have a real friend in order to give vent to her feelings. And since she did not have a friend, she chose this particular medium of a diary. All right? Okay. Now the next page. Anne finds her dear Kitty. So when she thinks that she is running out of patience without a friend, she desperately needs a friend, that is when she discovers the pleasure of writing a diary. She discovers the truthfulness, the trustworthiness of the diary. So she discovers her dear, dear Kitty. Okay? So this is where Anne says that she did not have a friend. So Anne says that she did not have a friend. Although she had a family and a host of others she could call friends. So I told you that she had her family. She had a sister, her mother, her father, and of course a host. Host is many. A host of people, which means she had many other relatives she could call friends. She did not have a true friend. This I put in inverted commas. Why have I put it in inverted commas? Because I want you to understand that she did have friends. She did have friends, but she never had a true friend. There's a difference between having friends. You might have 100 friends, but do you have one true friend? That is the question. And that is what Anne says, that she did have friends, but she did not have a true friend. So, Anne says she could not come close to and could not open up sufficiently to anyone. Sufficiently. Sufficiently means enough. Enough. She could not sufficiently open up to people. That was the problem with her. She says her nature was such that she could not open up to people. She could not mingle with people. She could not just relate to every person. And that is the reason she could not find a true friend. Because to a true friend, you disclose everything. And that is something Anne could not do. Okay? However, in case of a diary, she found it to be less demanding. In case of a diary, she found it to be less demanding. Because when it came to a diary, she thought that the diary was not demanding at all. It did not demand anything of Anne, and in fact, it kept listening and listening and listening to whatever she had to say. All right? So where would you find such a friend? आप ही का कोई दोस्त हो, उसको कुछ भी बोलते रहिए, बोलते रहिए, बोलते रहिए, एक समय आएगा जबकि वो कहेगा बस यार अब चुप रहो, अब हम सुनना नहीं चाहते, है ना? ये आप भी देखे होंगे. लेकिन डायरी क्या है? डायरी में आप कुछ भी लिखते रहिए, कुछ भी डायरी को कहते रहिए, डायरी सुनता ही रहेगा, सुनता ही रहेगा, सुनता ही रहेगा, है ना? So you will not find a more patient friend than a diary. Okay? So, Anne took the diary to be her close friend and named it Kitty. So why did she call it Kitty? Why did she call it Kitty? Because she wanted a name for her friend. Because it was such a wonderful friend, not demanding at all, and so very, very patient. So she wanted to give it a name, and therefore she named the diary Kitty. You got it? I hope that is this much is clear. All right. Now, with Kitty, she begins her diary. So, having given you that particular background of why Kitty was so important to her, we go over to the next page. Anne begins with a brief background. Now, she starts with a little background in her diary, right? And Anne, before explaining anything about her life, Anne shows her maturity as a writer. See, she is so mature as a writer. उसमें बहुत maturity है. उसमें काफी maturity है. She is not just writing anything, right? She is mature. She thinks before she writes. So, Anne shows her maturity as a writer by giving a brief account of a family which would facilitate. Now, what is the meaning of facilitate? The word facilitate is to make easy. Make easy. Okay? So the word facilitate is to make easy. So she actually makes things easier for you to understand by giving a brief account of a family. Because then you would understand why she is writing in a particular manner. Alright? If I give you a background of my family, I have a purpose. And the purpose being that I want you to understand why I'm writing the diary in a particular manner. Alright? So that is it. That is why she gives a brief account of her background. See what she has to say. These are in inverted commas. So these are words from her diary. Since no one would understand a word of my stories to Kitty if I were to plunge right in. Plunge. Plunge, the word plunge means to dive. Chalang mana. Like you dive into a pond or a swimming pool, right? You plunge into a swimming pool or a pond or a river. Okay? So, she says that if I dived and started writing the diary straight away without giving a brief background of my family, then I'd better provide a brief sketch of my life, much as I dislike doing so. So she says that since nobody would understand as to why I'm writing the diary, therefore I would like to start or begin with a background, with a brief sketch of my family. Right? Much as I dislike doing so, even though I don't like it, even though I don't like giving an account of my family. Okay? I don't want to discuss my family with you. However, to make things clearer, I'm doing this. I'm giving a brief sketch of my family. So, she makes it clear as to why she is doing this. She is giving a brief sketch of her family. Alright, so having done that, we come to the last page for today, and that is a candid description of her family. Now, the question is, what is candid? Candid. Candid is clear. Right? Frank. Candid is clear and frank. Bilkul spasht. Okay? So she gives a clear and frank description of her family. She says that her father married her mother, Edith, that is Otto. Father was Otto Frank, mother was Edith Frank. So Otto married Edith when he was 36 and she was merely maybe 25. So there was quite a bit of age difference between the couple, between the two people, right? The father and the mother. Her sister Margaret was 3 years older than her. As I told you, she was 3 years older than her, and humorously says that she, that is Anne, was a birthday present for Margaret. So Anne, when you read, you will find that Anne says that I was supposed to be a birthday present for my sister, meaning that she was brought in as a kid so that her sister, who was 3 years old, could actually play with her like a toy. Right? So she was actually a birthday present for her elder sister. Okay, then Anne also recalls her headmistress. Now, if you remember, the headmistress was Mrs. Cuperus. We have done this, right? The headmistress was Mrs. Cuperus. If you remember, in the list of names, the list of characters, we had come across Mrs. Cuperus, so she very fondly remembers Mrs. Cuperus and, of course, her grandmother, whom she calls Grandma. Now, Grandma is somebody she was very, very close to. All right? She does not name her. The name isn't given. However, she admits that she was very close to her. Anne was very close to her grandmother, and she admits it. Anne admits that she was very close to her grandmother. So, in giving a description of her family, she introduces us to her father, her mother, her sister, Mrs. Cuperus, her headmistress, and of course, her grandmother. Okay, so that is it for today. That is end of part 2. See, here we have a photograph of how she used to write. This is all written in Dutch. As I told you, all written in Dutch, not in English, in Dutch, right? There's a page from her diary, her original diary. So that's it. So you now know who Anne was and who were the people she was really close to. Now, in the next part, that is part 3, we will go for a real diary entry. All right? We'll go for a real diary entry where the most important character of Mr. Keesing will come in. All right? Why he would come in, who he was, we have already learned that, right? We already know he was a teacher, but as to why he was important to her, that we will see in the next session. All right? So thank you very much, and I hope you will stay safe and healthy in your homes. So for now, that's it. Bye-bye.